that's what we're used to seeing. Okay. For some reason, they lost where it was supposed to go. So you should have said,
If I go into 24, you think it'll be?
yeah, give that a shot. Yeah, it lost its default program for some reason, so we're back in business now.
They're pouring that dock today.
Oh, were they? Okay.
All I kept thinking about is you.
Down there.
All right, I'm just gonna do it quick.
Hello, sir. What are you doing? Good. Monday, it's a new week, no rain. It's hot. It's a little warm. Warm. You know, maybe December.
Yep.
I was thinking maybe this would be the first year of just 12 months hot.
We'll just try it a little further.
Oh, that's
Enjoy it for a week and then come back.
my old friends at Allegiant. Listen to my couple. Ask them what's going on with our bill. Makes me a little bit happier that they're still paying for the crane.
I'd like to call the November 16th meeting of the Punta Gorda Isles Canal Advisory Committee to order. Let's all please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Miller, are you going to do the roll call?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Thank you very much. For the record, Kathy Miller, Canal Maintenance. Fred Court,
Here?
Jake Dye,
Here.
Fred Hannon,
Here.
Robert Knabby,
Here.
Mark Kahutsky, Paul Raffa,
Here.
Colleen Wright.
Here.
Thank you.
Our next scheduled meeting is December 21st. Does anyone have a problem? Yes, Mr. Dye, Mr. Nobby, and Ms. Wright. All definite no's or maybe no's?
Definite no.
Mine's a maybe, but I think.
Mine's a definite no.
That's a definite.
Definite no, all right.
So if I could interrupt for a second, we are expecting a special permit for that December meeting. So we have anticipated that because it's so close to Christmas that you guys may not want the meeting. So we want to let you know that December 14th, which is the Monday before, this room is available if you want to reschedule it for then, or we can wait until January.
How does December 14th look on everyone's calendar?
I think I'm okay at this point.
Fred, yes?
I'll make it okay.
Okay, Paul, yes? Robert, yes? And Colleen?
I don't see anything on my calendar right now, so.
Let us move that meeting to December 14th, also at 1:30?
Yes,
All right,
Thank you.
okay,
thank you.
thank you.
And we'll let Mr. Kowarski know, so. All right. The minutes have been distributed. Any comments, questions? If not, we'll take a motion to approve them.
Move to accept.
It's been moved by Mr. Nobby and seconded by Mr. Hannon. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now is the time for citizens' comments on agenda items. This is not the items that will be heard in the public hearing, but any agenda items. Any citizen comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to reports, the finance reports.
Again, for the record, Kathy Miller, Canal Maintenance. In your packet, is your finance report for the last fiscal year, 2020 fiscal year. These are what your final expenditures were for that fiscal year. Were there any questions or concerns?
Questions from, I do have a couple. The CARES Act grant, it's not big, but I assume that, I didn't know we did that.
I don't know what that is either, but
Okay.
I will look into it and I will email all the board members.
That's not a huge one, but going further into the contractual services, and a number of other items where we, just looking at it, it's almost $60,000. We didn't spend it. Is that a correct statement?
All right, I'm trying to find out what page you're on,
I'm
Mr.
on
Court.
the
Fourth
second
page?
page,
Second
it's
page.
line item 103,960,549, contractual services. The amended budget was 242,000, but the year-to-date expenses were under 5.
So that was, that's the account line for the Ponce, widening Ponce Inlet. And if you remember correctly, we had put that project on hold until the attorney figured out whether or not we could do that project through our advisory, through our district, or if we had to do a special assessment like we did Buckley's Pass.
Okay.
So that's why they're, and that 4,000 that you see there is temporary labor, that I use for temporary labor.
And then down further, or the second from the bottom one, the seawall panel building materials, were
Yes,
well under
yes.
the budget there.
We had anticipated on building seawall panels, building a lot more seawall panels than we did, but we did not. A lot of this money was budgeted for steel, but I had some significant material left over after Irma. So,
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comments, questions on finance? Seeing none, let's move to budget utilization.
so these are the budgets that we usually track, and this is our budget for the fiscal year starting right now, this fiscal year, 2021. As you can see, we haven't paid any invoices yet, so,
Too soon.
yes. Were there any questions or concerns?
I see none, so seawall replacement status report.
Okay. We have 3 projects that are currently under construction. The reason why this one particular project that was scheduled for July had started now was because a contractor had a crew that was able to break loose from another job. They had nothing to do for about 6 weeks, so they brought him in and they did this job. This was a very easy job. There were no conflicts, no pipes, it was close to the harbor, so they were able to bring in a barge, remove and replace a seawall, and then get that seawall crew out of there, so that's why that had been moved up on the schedule.
Any questions on seawall replacement status report? Moving right along, permits authorized by city staff.
Okay, we got about 49 permits out there.
Is that a record?
I think it is.
I think it is too. It went on and on and on. Any questions on the city permits? All right, moving
Okay.
along to
Thank you.
capital improvements.
Afternoon, for the record, Gary Disher. On our capital improvements status, we've got seawall alternative materials. We have, obviously, both boards, BSI and PGI, have heard all the, provided the recommendations. We're putting together the agenda item, and then we're hoping to have that to City Council on January 20th, 2021, is our tentative schedule for when that goes before council.
So the second council meeting in January.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then Kathy just mentioned the ponds still being on hold, and that's it for that report. Any questions on that one?
Seeing none,
All right.
we'll move to public hearings, and
Leah will come down and swear us in. Leah, she'll be
Leah
back.
will come,
Yep.
all right. She's listening, so
Yep,
she's on her way.
I'm sure.
All those who intend to offer any testimony on the 2 public hearings on the agenda will have to be sworn in. And Leah will give you the swearing in and some instructions.
Anyone intending to offer testimony in today's proceedings, please stand and raise your right hand. Even if you think you might speak, if you could just, okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in today's proceedings? I do. And when you are ready to speak, please step to the podium, state your name, and indicate you've been sworn. Thank you.
All right, we'll take special permit CCSP 23-2020.
Give Leah a little chance to get back to her area. We'll get started. Okay, for the record, my name is Bob Nicola, and I have been sworn. CCSP 23-2020. This application is from the owner of the property, Gary Clock, I believe is how it's pronounced. He is requesting approval to install a 4-piling boat lift. He is located at an end of canal location. The canal this is the Scallop Waterway. It's approximately 120 feet wide at the end of the canal here. Per code, he would be allowed to have a watercraft or a vessel extend up to 30 feet waterward. That's the vessel only, but his request is for a 4-piling lift with an attached 2-foot walkway. The walkway would extend from the seawall all the way to the end of the lift. 2 of the pilings inside the structure limitation line would be 7 feet waterward. The pilings furthest waterward from the seawall would be 20 feet wide, so the furthest that the structure would extend out is 20 feet from the seawall. Somewhat interesting, or you know, and typically at the end of the canal we see a more angled approach. However, by not incorporating a dock into this plan, the approach angle is perpendicular to the seawall, and staff has reviewed the 6 criteria that are included as part of the review. We feel that that none of those 6 criteria are adversely impacted by this proposal, and therefore we would recommend approval, or recommend that you provide favorable consideration for this application. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? All right. Anyone wishing to speak on CCSP 23-2020, please to the podium.
Good afternoon. I am Mike Parr from Parr Marine Construction. I've been sworn. I didn't know if you had any questions on this one. We actually have 2 pull-in straights today through Parr Marine. It just means I lost 2 battles on angling it in and putting in a dock. But it's just a little flats boat trying to pull straight in and straight out.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Do I ask questions from the field or at the podium?
Thank
Going up to
you.
the podium.
To the podium, please, and identify yourself.
So I'm Jeffrey Cecil. I have been sworn in. I am the guy that owns the property next door to this at the end of the waterway. And I know you deal with this probably day in, day out, so you've heard the same sort of stuff. But I do have concerns.
Excuse me, are you in lot 1?
Lot 34, according to this, lot 34.
Okay, got it.
No, he's lot 34. So I'm, what am I, 35?
33, I would.
Oh, yeah, it says lot 1, block 65.
Yeah,
So I'm looking straight down the waterway.
gotcha.
And like I say, I know you deal with this probably day in and day out, but, you know, the cost of the property, because of the view, you know, the position is elevated. Part of the great enjoyment of that house is the view, and our main view from our living room is to the left side of the house, which would be closest to that dock. And of course, the resale value of the property would be, hugely impacted by any sort of obstruction of that view. I have tried to figure this out and look at this thing and try to imagine the view. I certainly want to encourage anybody that could have a boat to have a boat, but these are my concerns. So as I look at this, if this is approved, it looks like it's a boat lift, right? As I understand? 4-post boat lift?
That's what it,
Yes.
that's what
Okay.
it's here for, yes.
And it's 12 feet wide. 12 feet wide will lift quite a boat, right? 30-something feet? So if in fact this is approved, does that mean that any size boat you want, you can pull in there? And so there are no dimensional restrictions? You could decide he wants to buy a 42-foot Hatteras and put it there, and now it's out in the middle of the waterway, and he has outriggers, and he's, that sort of stuff. Am I subject to that sort of thing? And so I think that's, pretty much it. It's slightly offset 1 foot to my side. Maybe that could be jiggered or whatever. But those are my questions and concerns. So, in fact, are there no limitations once this has been proved of how the dock can be used?
Well, there is no dock under consideration. It's a boat lift.
Okay.
The boat lift would extend 20 feet waterward. Per the code, at the end of a canal of this width, the maximum distance that any vessel can extend waterward from the seawall would be 30 feet.
Okay, so there is a 7-foot dock, and then the posts go beyond that, right?
Is the dock coming out?
The dock, it will be coming out of,
Oh, the dock
in
gets,
order to construct this as requested, the dock and those outpilings in the picture
Okay.
would be removed, and I've got a picture on the overhead behind you.
yeah.
And,
We see the dock, and we have pilings there.
right,
The dock pilings all go away, and then the rearward post would be, what, 7 feet out? Basically about the width of that dock, or further out?
very close to, that dock is approximately 7 feet out from the seawall, so that would be the nearest, or the distance that the two closest pilings to the seawall, or the approximate position of the two pilings closest to the seawall for the lift would be at. And then the other pilings would be, I'm just gonna scale this.
Walkway shows 20 feet from the seawall.
Yeah, so it'd be about 13 feet to the next set of pilings.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the bottom line, the important factor, as you say, is 20 feet out from the seawall.
Correct.
And then 12 feet wide. And the question stands, once the dock is in there, there's no limitations on how it's used, the size of the boat or anything like that?
30 feet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think you did say that, I apologize.
Right, the boat can only extend out 30 feet, and and perhaps Mike could explain
Yeah, sure.
the size of the lift, but, or the carrying capacity of the lift, but in order to balance the boat on the lift, I would think the boat probably would be 5 to 6 feet beyond that.
Yeah, Mike Parr from Farmer and Construction, I've been sworn. The boat limitation lines, the red lines on that drawing, are where you're allowed to have a boat anyway, so that it's set up to pull in straight with just a little boat. It's a 7,000-pound lift, so it's got 11-foot cradles,
Okay,
which means up to 9 feet wide on a boat,
so,
which is probably gonna be 8'6".
we're talking about the dashed
Exactly.
pink lines.
when
So
you-
that's 30 feet out here is what we're saying?
Yeah, the issue is if you put a boat on, if you were to try to back one on there to get a longer boat, your boat
Yeah,
would
yeah.
end up going past the line.
No, which line? Is it this line? or
Yes, sir.
This line?
Yes, sir. So the boat pulls in this way. The furthest out point on the boat, the way how we have it planned is about 21 feet. So this would be the back of the boat. Really, you have a dock where the,
This
Oh, okay.
this is
Going.
hard to capture in the minutes. so,
yes,
uh,
I'm sorry.
I apologize, yeah. So, but, Gary, was it?
Mike.
Mike, yeah.
Oh, you're okay.
You're stating then the length of the boat can only be 20 feet out, if this is in fact 20 feet out. And they're saying it's 30 feet out, so,
The boat limitation, per code would be 30 feet out, but if it closes in a corner, it closes on itself. So it's not like, if it was just a straight seawall like yours, you're allowed out 30 feet is what he's saying. But we wouldn't be able to fit a 30-foot boat inside there anyway.
well, it looks to me like if this is 20 feet, adding another 10 makes 30 about out here, right?
Correct.
Right, we're a little,
Yeah.
I don't want to lose your questions.
Yes, sir.
But we can't have the dialogue going on there. You have to address us and let us answer the questions. I
Okay,
think Mike
yeah,
is
and so
probably-
I'll try to form the questions
Yeah,
a little clearly for the record, more clearly. So Mike had just stated that the boat would basically stick out just a little bit more than the 4 pilings, but that doesn't match with the statement that the boat could be 30 feet long. And so I think, if I understand it right, you're saying that the maximum boat they could put in is 30 feet, and it would touch the seawall and go out 30 feet. Okay?
I'm not sure anybody said that. I think what you've heard is that the boat cannot extend more than 30 feet. It's whatever size boat, it's limited to that 30 feet from the seawall.
So therefore, you couldn't have a boat that's longer than 30 feet?
Correct.
That would be,
Yeah, okay, that was my,
okay. Mr. Dye, you have a question?
and is there,
Yeah, I think one thing that's maybe misunderstood is the practical limitation of what you can actually put on this lift. That's the thing that's gonna limit it. You won't be able to get more than, as best I can tell, 21, 22-foot boat on this lift. Regardless of how far out you would be allowed to put a boat in that space, this lift limits how big that boat's gonna be. So it has to be a small boat.
okay, and just to be cautious though, if you should decide not to use the lift and put a bigger boat in there, you could.
If you took the lift out,
Well, the lift is 12 feet wide. Could you drop the lift down and bring a boat in? I guess not. Now, I'm sorry for my ignorance here.
there's no practical reason to do that, so.
Well, if you wanted a bigger boat than 22 feet, you could just say, hey, I'm submerging the lift.
I understand what your concerns are, but we're into some hypothetical stuff now, and I don't think we can answer that, or anyone else here can do that. I think we need to stick with what's being proposed, the lift as it is, and the limitation lines as they are, and we'll leave it at that, I think.
Has the owner told you how big the boat is?
No, I do not know how big the boat is. I don't know if I can ask that now, and that becomes a limitation. I mean, does it fit? Is it 20, 21 feet?
We're here, we don't rule on the size of the boat. We're here to take a look and either approve or disapprove the project as is presented.
Okay,
Here.
Colleen?
Well, I do have a question, because I think you're bringing up a good point. We are kind of ruling on the size of the boat, because we do have boat limitation lines. And this one looks like you really can't go more than 21 feet. But my question is, whoever goes out and inspects that? How is that enforced in our community?
Can anyone answer that?
For the record, Gary Disher. It's my understanding that if there's a code case, if that's outside of that code limit, say somebody puts a 35-foot boat in there, it's outside of the boat limitation lines, one of the neighbors would then call to report the case to code, and then it becomes an item to look at. We don't go out as canal maintenance and look for those items. That's up to, somebody in that adjacent area reporting that as a violation. And then it's not heard by y'all's board, it's heard by code enforcement.
Right, yeah. So my observation is correct. It really can't go out very far, because not many boats are narrower
In the
in the stern.
Right.
Right? And this is assuming it would be narrower than that 9 feet in the stern. So, you
Well-
Like right now, if that was.
Back the boat in. And
21
again,
feet.
I'm not trying to be, I know now's the time where I have to state my case, otherwise I have to live with it. So you could back the boat back where the tail is at the dock and then the nose is out. And let me ask you a quick question on this. The outside dashed lines on the diagram, is that a limitation the boat has to fit within?
The red line.
Oh, okay. So we're limited, I think that was your point. Am I correct?
Let me make sure, and I'm colorblind, so I don't know what line is red. The
Yeah.
dashed line represents, you have also the boat limitation line, which is the line that cuts through the dashed line. And that would be that 30-foot marker, is that not correct? So,
That'll be this line here, right?
yeah, that's the line. you're
That is
talking
the
about.
line I'm describing. The boat has to fit within that triangle?
Even if there wasn't a lift there now or planned lift, anybody can go within their boat limitation lines if they could somehow support the boat. So even if it didn't come before this board, they could currently have a boat within that triangle. And they couldn't get outside of the triangle, and then it would become a code case.
And I'm good, and this is very useful to me. This makes it, I feel much more comfortable. They have to stay inside that triangle,
Yes.
then I'm probably pretty good. I didn't measure the triangle out, but triangle goes out there quite a ways, but then, let's see, the beam,
But then,
That looks like-
Let's not get, again, the triangle is one thing, but the boat limitation line is not the triangle. And in this case, it's shown as 25 feet from the seawall. So that
That's the
is
structure
also
limit. That's the structure limitation line.
structure limit there.
okay. So a boat, maximum length of boat you could have is 25 feet, is what you're telling me. Oh, God,
No,
I'm
the
so-
That's the structure limit.
I thought we just said, okay, there's a structure limit. It points out there.
Right.
The structure limit is this dashed line.
Oh,
That is 25 feet waterward from the seawall.
okay.
There's also a structure limit line for each individual property, and that's this triangle, the smaller triangle here. So the greater limitation for Lot 34 is, and why they're here before the board, the code allows a structure to extend up to 25 feet waterward, but only if it can stay within this smaller triangle, this.
Right.
And there's two pilings and a portion of the lift and a portion of this walkboard that are outside of that. So that's why this has come before the board.
Okay. And the extended triangle, the longest triangle,
This one,
yeah, I guess that just follows lot line. That has nothing to do with anything here?
that's determined by basically taking the 45-degree angles or the structure limitation lines at adjoining properties and splitting the angle between. And so that becomes the boat limitation line as well, whether a boat's on a lift or just sitting in the water. That the boat can only extend that up to those lines, the boat
Okay.
limitation line.
Okay. So, again, any boat that goes outside the large triangle is too large. As long as your boat fits in there, you can keep it inside those dashed. And that line goes out there 30, 35 feet. And I didn't measure.
Well, it can't go more than 30 feet.
30
So
feet?
actually, this is probably, yeah.
Yeah, see, that doesn't look like it's to scale, but okay, fair enough. I get
Well,
you.
it is, and rather than coming to a point out here, it would look more like, like this. So the boat would have to stay within this line, and this line. This is a 30-foot waterward line here.
Okay, now that makes more sense to me, what we've been saying about limitations. Okay, so outside dash lines and the 30-foot limit line, and that's how big the boat can be.
That's the maximum.
Okay, and so, again, I've stated, obviously, my concerns. You know, they're over there. I would like them to have it, but I'm concerned about them infringing and creating a property problem. Is it fair, I believe one of the owners of the boat is in the room, to ask the length of the boat?
If they're interested in responding. Does anybody have any questions for this gentleman before he? Mr. Parker.
Mike Parr from Parr Marine Construction, I've been sworn, the game plan is to just pull a little flats boat on 18 feet, 21 feet, somewhere in that range. It's nothing big,
Really?
yeah. It's just a 7,000
Why don't
pound
you
lift, so
let
you're
her-
pulling it straight.
let her- Can we let her speak?
Oh, sure, I didn't think she wanted to.
Well, no, I do think it's 23.
We can,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yes, you must come to the podium and,
I'm sorry. Kate Krebs and I have been sworn. I do believe the boat's 23 feet.
okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe, it's not 18, I know that. I think it's 23.
Bob said it was 26, but again, I don't know if Bob knows anything, so I don't claim to know
No,
the
it's
length of the
not,
boat.
I can tell you, it's not 26.
Okay.
Okay.
That I
Yeah,
do
20,
know.
23
Thank
is
you.
not so
I think
bad.
that-
Thank you, Ken.
Have we sufficiently answered the question?
You have, I've exhausted everything. I appreciate your patience with me in trying to understand this process.
Thank you.
No, it's good.
All right, does anyone else have anything to say on CCSP 23-2020? A second time, any other individual wishing to speak on CCSP 23-2020? And a third time, anyone on 23-2020? We'll entertain a motion
Move to close
the
public.
hearing.
Second.
Okay, it
Jake
has
Dye,
been-
second.
Thank you, and Mr. Nabi seconded, I guess?
First.
All right, thank you. All those in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing is closed. All right. What is your pleasure with CCSP 23-2020? Mr. Dye?
It's interesting how many times we see these these corner end lots come up, and time after time, people are asking, so why don't you just go straight in instead of at an angle? Now, all of a sudden, we got a straight in, and there's a problem with that, so. It doesn't appear to me that this is gonna obstruct anybody's use of the waterway or view or anything else. And I would think a boat that size is kind of consistent with what we would expect to see going into these corner lots, as opposed to trying to shoehorn a 35-foot boat in there, which we see on occasion.
Would that be a motion to approve 23-2020?
Jake Dye, move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hannan. Any other discussion on 23-2020? All right, the motion is before you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Sure. All right, let's move to CCSB 24-2020.
For the record, Bob Nicola, Public Works Engineering, CCSP 24-2020. This application is from the owner, Monica Valle, who's seeking approval to install a four piling boat lift, again perpendicularly to the seawall. Two of the pilings and a portion of a 3-foot wide by 12-foot long walkboard would be outside the 45-degree angle. This particular property has 46 feet approximately of seawall. The end of canal, as measured by the definition of our code, is 147 feet wide. Per code, a canal of this width, a vessel could extend up to 30 feet waterward, as long as it was within the boat limitation lines. And the two, again, because it's perpendicular to the seawall, the two pilings closest to the seawall would be 8 feet waterward. The two pilings furthest out would be 22 feet waterward. I have a sketch that was included in your packet that was submitted by the engineer. I have taken it upon myself to also overlay what's currently in process at the neighboring property to give you a little bit of an idea of what's going on there. At 1642 Bobolink, the property immediately east, a dock was just poured today. I do have some photos that I can share with you. And there will be a 6,000-pound lift, 4-piling lift, installed with an approach angle, something like this. So it gives you a perspective of what's going on with the neighboring property as well as this property. However, with this boat lift positioned the way that it is, I don't know the size of the boat that would be installed there, but again, on this particular drawing, I do have a dashed line. This represents 35 feet waterward. I don't know that the owner of the adjoining property is planning to use that water, but you know, whether it's on a lift or a boat in the water, it could extend up to that distance from the seawall. Again, we've reviewed the 6 criteria. And for the benefit of the audience, you know, I'll read through these quickly, that would be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this article, would not be injurious to the waterway involved, would not impede safe navigation, would not allow a structure or use aesthetically or functionally incompatible with existing structures or uses on surrounding lands, would not permit any structure or activity that would interfere with or be detrimental to the quiet and peaceful use and enjoyment of any nearby land, and would not otherwise be a detriment to public health, welfare, and safety. So again, looking at those 6 criteria, staff does believe that this application meets that, or meets those standards, and do recommend favorable consideration. I would be happy to answer any questions you have, or if you'd like to see any photos of the property in question, I'd be happy to pull those up.
Questions? Kelly?
I mean, I guess maybe an obvious question, how is the resident of 1642 going to get a boat onto their lift if there's a boat on the other lift?
Can I ask those questions, or are we waiting?
At the podium.
I'm Jeff D'Amico, and I've been sworn. I'm the neighbor at 1642. I do have a diagram that's similar to his, it just has boats drawn into it. I could tell you the size of the boat is over 34 feet long. It's actually closer to 35, including an anchor. It's 34 and a half, and then it has an anchor hanging off the front. I have 0 chance of getting into my lift the way it's configured right now. The lift that he actually currently has, I have to get around because it's outside of the zone. But I can make it right now. The way that this is configured, there's 0 chance of me getting into my lift. And as far as how far it's gonna extend seaward, I gotta imagine, or canalward, I gotta imagine it's closer to 40 to 42 feet. Because he's planning on backing it in, and he has outdrives. I can't imagine he can get his boat in closer to 5 feet from the wall.
You said you had a diagram. Could
I have a diagram. Can I show that over there? This is this one here. That's the, yeah.
Bob, while you're doing that, can we get a clarification on how far a boat can extend out on this piece of property?
Bob Nicola for the record. Yes, it can go 35 feet waterward, based on the canal width of greater than 125 feet.
I thought you said 30 feet just a few minutes ago. Is it 35?
The question was 30 versus 35. For a canal that's less than 125 feet wide at the end of the canal, a boat can, or a vessel can extend up to 30 feet waterward. Anything over 125 feet, the vessel can go up to 35 feet waterward. And I did take a picture of the permit that was on display at the neighboring property. And I'll point out that on that drawing, and as well as this drawing, that application included a canal width of 143 feet. So that's slightly different than our measurement, but it's close enough. And again, reflects that I think when this permit was, or this application was submitted, one would consider that a canal of that width, a boat can go up to 35 feet waterward.
And just while you're there, Bob, as this drawing shows and as your sketch showed, I'm assuming that this was a city-approved permit because nothing was outside the 45?
That's correct.
Thank you. So, can you go back to your, just put that back up again. The boat that you've shown in there on the permit that we're looking at today, what does that represent exactly?
I'm sorry, which boat? The right or
Not
the left?
yours, that one.
That is their boat, so that is the length of their boat.
And-
To scale, it's like I said, it's a 34-foot model, but it's slightly bigger than that, and then it has an anchor hanging off the front, so it's right around 35.
And you have it shown going in, stern in.
Stern in, because that's the only way he'd be able to get it in. This lift would have to be way further out, because it's very stern heavy, has twin engines. He wouldn't be able to get it on, and then his nose would be in his, his yard.
Thank you.
And the reason I'm pointing that is because he can't get it right against the wall with his stern drives that way. He'd have to have a certain distance out. So the reality is, I think it's gonna be sticking a little bit further than this out. I'm trying to be fair about it, but that's the reality of it.
Okay.
And as you can see, I have less than one boat length to even back out of my boat lift and try and get out of here. And if there's a wind blowing or something like that, my chances are I'm in his anchor. And I believe he has other options. This doesn't have to be the only option. He can either angle it another way. He can get an elevator lift and put it closer to shore and have it go up, perpendicular to his shoreline. There's other options besides this.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if we could get a copy of this.
Mike,
for
did
our
you want to say
protocol.
more?
Yeah. Mike Parr from Parr Construction. I have been sworn.
You can have that if you want.
Okay, so we gotta break it down a little bit. Next door,
Have another copy, so we're good.
I feel like this is where we run into the issues in the corners, is when you have a little bit bigger than like a 52-foot seawall, you don't quite go for the special exception because you can fit it inside the 45, but if you bring up well, I guess that'll show enough. This seawall running up line, that's not in direction with the canal at all. So that's kind of what clutters up the canals is at the very end, if you don't do a special exception, you build it inside the 45 degree, you run into the same kind of issue, if you're following. So I don't exactly know the best answer to that, but that's why we're all here. When it comes to it can't be out more than 35 feet from the seawall. That's the boat limitation line. So just drawing whatever size boat you want on there makes it look a lot worse than it can even be legally. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me. Yes.
Do you know the size of the boat?
I don't know the size of the boat.
I think we need to find that out.
When I had set everything up with him, basically he already had his design that he was looking for, knew it took a special exception to get the 2 boat lift pilings outside of the 45. So I drew it up and this is what we got.
How many pounds is the lift?
I don't think it works.
That's a good question. I don't know. I believe maybe it's a 13.5? I'd have to look. If I said it, I'd be guessing.
Okay.
'Cause from my understanding, it was more of a boat, we were trying to get a couple walkboards on either side of it to get around the boat, is making it a little bit wider. But once again, I don't, without going through it with the customer or with the homeowner, I'm not positive of the size, length of boat. I know that it couldn't go out more than 35 feet. But
If it's
the
a
other
13
issue is,
13.
that I run into is if we don't have a lift in here, and there is enough room inside the 45 degree, you end up with the same situation. So you just have that boat with the outdrives pulled in and tied to pilings that are inside the 45. So it's not more just this property as much as what you do with the end properties next to these corners. So if you try to fit them inside the 45 degree, turning them toward the seawall, even legally, if somebody wants to park a boat inside, that 35 feet, you have an issue with the other boat backing out of there. So like I said, I don't have the answer to it, but it's something definitely needs to be brought up.
Is there, as has been suggested, is there an alternative that would be different than this, that would angle it differently so that you have a better approach for both boaters?
If we tried to angle in with the angle of the canal, but being on a 45 degree on lot 1, you're pointing straight to the other seawall. So I mean, no matter how you angle it, there's going to be a boat or a structure in front of backing that boat up. Even if it was just a boat tied in there, he's not gonna be able to get out. That's another reason when you design these, you gotta look at these and go through the options with the homeowner, saying, I know you have 62 feet, but if the neighbor in the corner has anything of this sort, it's not usable. I mean,
Bob, can you scale the
Podium if you want.
the width of that lift?
Oh, why doesn't he know what size the lift is? Can't imagine you're selling something you don't.
14?
Between 13 and 14 wide, probably 13 and a half. And then the bunks are spaced 8 feet. Piling to piling is 14 feet. So you could almost say 14 feet square with
say
the lift
we
arms
bring
about
it
8 feet.
to that 25-foot mark, spin it with an alpha style lift, it's anything there is still gonna be in front of that boat backing out on a 45 degree angle. So I don't know what the answer would be.
Colleen, you had a question?
Well, a couple of questions, like, could we put a smaller lift in there? Why is there a dock that goes out 7 feet? Can that be smaller, all to get this within the 45? Or angle it like the other person did? But what you're asking for now is outside the 45, it's a really, really big lift, would lead me to believe it's a big boat going on there. And it's absolutely gonna interfere with the other homeowner.
But say it was 2 feet more narrow, right? It was only a 10,000 pound lift. You still have the same issue that's all I'm saying. When I'm trying to find a different design, no matter how if it's not inside the 45 degree, then it's gonna be in the way of them backing up.
Well, can you put something inside the 45?
You can, it would be a really small boat or even more dangerously backed in.
Well, I think I've believed all along during my whole term here is there's a reason we have these 45 lines.
Right.
We get in trouble when we start going outside of them. So I think sometimes these smaller lots, unfortunately, you don't always get to have the boat you want when you buy a smaller lot.
Right, it's 46, what is 46 foot seawall? Is that correct, Bob?
That's correct. And 1642, I believe, has 53 feet. 54, 55.
So I guess technically you could put a boat lift in that 45 degree and then he could try to back it in there. That, you know, seems like a safety and navigation as well. I'm not, like I said, I got into this project was a show up, this is the design that I have, this is what I need, this is a special exception. So I would love to be able to tweak it around. I need to get a couple more specifics on what would work, what would not, boat size. But I'm just trying to get a feel from you guys what you would more prefer, because if it's outside of the 45 degree at all, it's gonna be in the way of a lift that's set up inside the 45 degree. I mean, it's pointing straight at, I mean, like I said, if you had a boat legally parked there, you still couldn't use that boat lift.
Right, ma'am, you had a comment that you wanted to make?
Yes. I'm Michelle D'Amico, and I've been sworn in.
I'm sorry, you have been sworn?
Michelle D'Amico, and I've been sworn in.
Okay.
We're following every guideline. We just bought this house. We closed a month and a half ago, and we're following all the guidelines that are required. When we made our plans, they're just now installing our dock and everything for us to be able to have our boat, and it meets all the criteria. Ours, I'm 1642. We won't be able to use it if that's allowed. That's going to be devastating. Our life savings has been put into this home.
You know how big the boat is?
Yes.
How big?
It's 30, sorry, my husband, well, my husband knows because we've been on it, so.
I'm Jeff D'Amico. My boat you're asking?
No, the boat that's going in there.
It's a 34-foot model, but it's actually bigger than 34, and that's not hypothetical. I've been on the boat. I know the model. I looked up the stats. It's 34.3 inches, and it has an anchor hanging off the front, so that takes it up to about 35, if not longer. The boat is simply too big. It doesn't belong in a house that somebody's on a little corner like that. It belongs in a marina.
So if that boat was backed in, you couldn't get around that boat mainly because of the anchor hanging out, right?
Well, it's more than just the anchor. I mean, I don't think I can get out, period, with that boat there, and there's no way he can get that close to the wall. But even if he was sitting on the wall, it would still be tough. And if there was any wind, I'd guarantee my boat would be into his anchor. So, like I said, I mean, you know, it's a nice boat. These are nice people, you know, but we were surprised to get we go out to dinner with them, and the next day we get something in the mail saying they're putting a thing in it. It's like, why would you not tell us this?
What do you have?
Why wouldn't you bring it up?
What do you have for a boat?
I have a 24-foot, it's a 239, Key West 239 center console.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter, you wanted to comment? Have you been sworn, Peter?
I have been sworn. My name is Peter Aratari. I represent Marine Contracting Group. That boat is 34 feet, you know, plus OAL, I don't know exact, but you know the boat's gonna sit 3 feet off the wall. It has to. You can't put the IO up against the seawall. And that's transom the bow pulp at 34. That doesn't include the props and the lower units. So that boat's gonna sit essentially probably 37 feet off the wall realistically. I mean, if you're conservative, you say 30, and you're only allowed to go 35. So he knows he's gonna put the boat 37, and that's if he slams the lower units up against the seawall. So really, if you backed your boat and you'd want it 3 to 4 feet off the seawall, I don't know how deep it is there, you can't dredge to within 7 feet of the seawall. So it's not a good design. The design is, you know, it's for that boat, for those boats to be transom to transom. I mean, I've been doing this for 26 years just in the city of Punta Gorda. You don't need to run to special permit every time you got a small lot. If you turn that boat like that, and have it angle length, they're not gonna leave at the same time. That's the design. When you put your ruler on there and you say, can it go another way, that's the way. And you can have, might be able to get the 34-foot boat on there. That's a big boat for the property. He's got a 53-foot lot, he's got a 24-foot boat. You got a small lot, you gotta get a small boat. Or you go buy an 80-foot lot. But the guy's got a 34-foot boat, so he needs to be careful. And maybe it's not the lot for him. Or get rid of the boat and get a little bit smaller boat. But he might be able, I haven't scaled it, I haven't even looked at this job yet, but that's the angle it needs to be. The canal's 143 feet wide, or you said 147, I think, Bob? So you've got plenty of room to come in. Doesn't have to come in from down the canal. He can swing around and come in the width of the canal. It's a wide canal. And if it goes opposite angle of this, you might even be able to get everything inside the 45 degree. I know for sure you can get a 29-foot boat on there without coming to y'all. just by looking at it. I don't know about 34. I don't know about 37.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to comment? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sally Pinches. I have been sworn in. We're on lot 21 on the opposite side of this. The only question I have is if they reverse all this stuff, do they have to do another permit, another special permit? Because then it's going to really affect us. So is that, I mean, once they say yes or no and they say no to this, if they do, then do we get notified again?
That's correct.
Okay. And I also want to say your person Bob here is phenomenal.
We know that.
Amen.
Thank you. Mike, have more to say, please?
Yes, sir. Mike Parr from Parr Marine Construction. I have been sworn. I feel like in this case, with the boat size, it may be best to just put 2 pilings inside the 45 and keep the boat in the water. That may end up, I mean, that keeps you guys out of a battle of can come in and out. Still leaves the same problem with entering and exiting the boat lift next door. But I don't, without having it designed this way, he wouldn't be able to fit or lift the boat that he's looking to fit in there.
Colleen?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you suggesting 2 pilings and having it still coming straight in? So
Yeah,
it's
say the 2 pilings, if we put them inside the 45 degree, all this other big area is still his berthing line, water.
right, but
You can park the boat right inside of it. You just can't, without having the boat lift approved, we'd have to move the pilings, to keep them spread enough. We'd have to move them to the right a little bit, which will push the boat a little bit further to the right, but it'll stay inside the berthing line.
and with the understanding that they understand they can't go more than 35 feet.
Correct,
So you cannot
yeah.
have a 34-foot
Exactly.
boat. I think we all.
Exactly, and then it's just a matter of getting the guy to wash your, clean your lower units all the time. So I'd hate to push it forward knowing that that's the boat size that he wants, or, something in that ballpark of boat, because if you're fitting inside the 45 or trying to angle past, you're not gonna be able to fit it in there without backing in. But if it's spun, backing in is not an option. Then you're talking a serious safety and navigation problem.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sure.
Can we not dock, I mean, if you're talking about keeping the boat in the water, and I don't know if I can address him directly, but I mean, can we not just have it against the dock, floating in the water, bottom paint the thing and park it parallel to the dock?
How do you get a 35?
We can't answer that question, but
I
thank
mean,
you.
is that him or?
Oh, I'd have to get with the homeowner.
Okay. I mean, is that as far as would it fit within the lines? I mean, if we're talking about even just floating in the water and going out, it's gonna go out past 35. I mean, unless he has that thing glued to the wall, it's just bigger than that. So,
Does he own this boat now?
yeah, I've been on this boat. He owns this boat.
Oh, okay.
He just purchased it a couple months ago.
Sorry, one more time. For Mike Parr from Parr Marine Construction, I've been sworn. In that case, you would just use 2 pilings and slide moors. That way the boat can slide up and down with the tide.
So it would be parked this way?
It'd probably look exactly similar to what you have, just in the water, not on a lift.
No, I'm talking about this way. I mean, could he park it in again, just like if it was a dock?
Yeah,
and he
on
was
something
parking-
like that, I'd have to get with the homeowner.
Right.
But the issue is to stay inside that 45 degree, to get that piling separation enough, you have to keep going off of the seawall, which brings it, every time you go out a foot, you have to come off a foot, inside that 45 degree.
You're kinda losing me on that.
All right, I think, yeah.
Sorry, I apologize,
No, that's
but-
all right. We don't want to get too far into inventing a solution at this point. I think,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
There are alternatives, but we don't know what the homeowner wants. So. Does anybody else want to comment on CCSP 24-2020? Second time. Anybody else? 24-2020? And third time. Anybody else commenting on 24-2020?
Just one question that did come up about the notification. Right now, the request is for 2 pilings outside the 45. If an alternative design was created that only involved 2 pilings outside the 45, it would not be re-advertised. We would not re-notify anyone else. If the design changed to say 3 pilings or 4 pilings outside the 45, very unlikely to have 4 outside, but if there were 3, then it would have to be re-advertised in the paper, and then the neighbors would be notified as well.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Parr from Parr Marine Construction. I've been sworn. Sorry, guys. I was just thinking to myself, if there's a way that we can get it continued so that I can go through it with the customer, being that he's, put $800 forward, I'd just like to run it through it and see if there is a way to wiggle it or work with the homeowner next door. If it give me a little bit more time to try to figure it out. Thank you.
Anyone else want to comment on 24-2020? Second time, 24-2020? Third time, 24-20? One more time.
Jeff D'Amico, I've been sworn, so just so I understand, so they're saying if he changes it and it's still only 2 pilings, we just won't know about it until they start pounding pilings in? Is there a way that we'd be notified at all if something
Well,
changed?
That's
It
only
still
if
may
we
be.
approve something.
I'm sorry?
If we do not approve something, it would be, as was suggested, it could be continued
Okay,
for discussion at a subsequent meeting 1 month, no more than 2 months from now.
okay, but if they come up with another plan, they would, I don't know exactly how they file it with
If
the
it's, if
city.
it's a plan, as Mr. Nicola said, that is more than 2 pilings outside.
Yeah.
Or some other variance that is, would have to come to this committee, the process would have to restart and we would hear it again.
But if it was 2 pilings, I would not hear about it until, if it was approved, I would hear about it? Or,
You would check the agenda for the meeting every month, and if you follow the agenda, then you'll know, and then if they decide, the committee decides to continue, it'll be a date certain. We'll say it'll be heard next month's meeting.
yeah,
You will then be able to,
okay,
just check that agenda for the meeting. We meet the same place, same time every month. And,
okay.
Except it's
except, yeah, December 14th, we just moved that date up, so.
Okay. I mean, I would hope the neighbors would talk to us and say, hey, here's the plan, but I don't know what's gonna happen,
Colleen?
No, I was just gonna suggest that you look at the, online, you could see the agendas.
Okay.
But you'll know before you leave here when it'll be here again.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So Jake Dye moved to close the public hearing.
Well, I got to go 3 times again since we broke the cycle. Anyone else want to speak on 24-2020? Second time, 24-2020, going a third time, 24-2020.
Now Jake Dye moves to close the public hearing.
I second it.
All right, Mr. Rappa seconds. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. What discussion, please? Go ahead, Colleen.
I thought I heard it was being withdrawn, or is this being withdrawn?
Continue.
Continued, so you're continuing it.
We-
So we're
Well,
not
then,
voting.
We would have to
we
vote on that.
would have to choose to continue it. And to a date certain, the next available date would be December 14th. I think we're limited out 2 months and no more than that. I think that's correct. So they may take some additional time and still come back and be within the continuance of this item. But we would need a motion to continue.
Jake Dye moved to continue.
Second.
Mr. Hannon seconds. And do we want to continue it to December 14th or to the January meeting?
It's probably kind of dependent on what the plan is, because I'm not sure we got enough time. We just barely have enough time to make the deadline. Maybe not, I'm not sure.
Because of the 14th.
That's true. It's Bob Nicola. If we would, in order to meet that December 4th,
14.
December 14th meeting date, if we have to have an ad in the paper, that would have to be to the clerk's office by this Friday. So
So
if
to
the,
January?
Next,
yeah, the
Possible
January
date.
would be January 18th. However, that's the Martin Luther King holiday, so you probably would be meeting on the 19th.
So do we have to specify when it'd be? We just,
I think we should. So
I think for a date certain, yes.
oh, we know we can't get in there December.
All right, so your motion would be to continue
Continue to
till
the January meeting,
The 19th?
19th meeting.
That's the date. And Mr. Hannah, that's okay with you? Yes. All right. So the motion is to continue to January 19th or to the January meeting. And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. It is continued. Okay. Is there any new business to come before the committee? Unfinished business? Seeing none. Staff comments? No. All right. Committee and board comments? Any citizen comments? Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
This is a case where the tires hit the road.